What's going on, it's the Polygon Don here, and today we're talking about 10 PS4 games you can kick back and unwind with. Whether you're exhausted from work or school, or your patience have been severely tested by your nearest and dearest, turning on and hearing that familiar beep of your PS4 or PS5 can instantly settle nerves and relieve some of the day's stresses and frustrations. It's pretty tough out there these days. Just existing in 2023 is a heavy enough undertaking, and sometimes you don't want your favourite games trolling you when you're already feeling a little on the sensitive side. So when your reflexes won't allow for a twitchy shooter and your brain can't handle learning another boss's 3-phase attack pattern, stick the kettle on, grab a blanket and get cozy with these 10 relaxing PS4 games. Originally adapted from a Spanish comic book series, Blacksad Under the Skin will have you playing as John Blacksad, a feline detective from New York in the 1950s that is tasked with investigating the suspicious death of a boxing club owner. Similar in playstyle to Telltale series and other lightly interactive story-focused games like Heavy Rain and LA Noire, Blacksad Under the Skin will have you searching for clues in the environment and utilising John's heightened feline senses to allow you to slow down time and perceive visual clues that are not only added to your clue index, but also dictates the direction the story will go down depending on your decisions, with a total of 6 different possible endings that can be experienced. Combining the right clues ascertained to form conclusions provides the aha moments, and the sometimes strange voiceover deliveries and low-budget jank provides some unintentional chuckles. It's a light-hearted and silly detective adventure game that probably takes itself a little too seriously than it should, but still provides an engaging story that you'll want to see through to the end. This is for fans of clue-gathering adventure games like the Sherlock Holmes series, A Wolf Among Us, and the previously mentioned LA Noire and Heavy Rain. Shout out to a channel viewer for bringing this to my attention.
The thing is, they didn't know we shared a common goal. Bobby Yale. I want to find him and get to the bottom of this as much as you do, Mr. Blacksad. So please, kindly accept my invitation. Why not share our findings?
Rime is an adventure puzzle game that follows a boy arriving at and searching a mysterious island with a fox-like spirit as a guide. The game is played in a third-person perspective, and you'll be guiding the boy to solve environmental puzzles across the island's landscapes by running, climbing, carrying objects and pushing and pulling levers, etc. The puzzles themselves are mostly fun but relatively simple challenges to overcome, and they do have a nicely balanced curve of difficulty that never got to that frustrating what now stage. If anything, they could have been a bit more tricksy if you ask me. You can also make the boy shout or even hum a rather lovely tune, which when triggered in the right place can lead to certain events such as previously hidden doors revealing themselves. Then there's the more perspective-based puzzles where lining up several faraway objects from one particular place can trigger other events in a similar way. It's a beautiful looking game from a small studio based in Spain, borrowing style cues from games like The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, and drawing surrealist inspiration from artists like Salvador Dali in its world design, whilst also exploring themes of loss and grief. This ambient and at times violent open world, or island I should say, is a beautiful and haunting place to delve into and unravel its mystery. A Hat in Time is a love letter to the wonder years of 3D platformers championed by games such as Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie and Spire the Dragon, to name a few. It centres around a young alien girl named Hat Kid trying to return home via her spaceship. Whilst on her journey, she passes over a planet, and a member of the planet's mafia, yes mafia, comes to collect a toll for the mafia town government. When Hat Kid refuses the cheeky toll charge, Mafia Guy bursts open the spaceship's door, causing Hat Kid and all her precious timepieces to fall to the planet below. The timepieces themselves are what power her ship, so Hat Kid is left with little choice but to get to work on retrieving them all if she ever wants to see home again. You'll travel between 4 open levels, 6 if you include the DLC, which can be freely explored without time limits. You'll be collecting various items, solving puzzles, and use either an umbrella or a baseball bat to fight the game's enemies. Combat is relatively easygoing, and after being defeated, enemies drop pawns, this game's version of currency, that can be used to unlock additional challenges and purchase badges that increase Hatkid's abilities. Whilst the primary objective is to collect your precious timepieces, 56 of which can be found in the game, you can also collect a host of other items such as yarn balls, which can be stitched into new hats to wear, each granting Hatkid a different ability, such as a faster sprint or brewing potions, etc. Then there's the relics, which can be used to unlock time rift bonus levels, and rift tokens, which can be exchanged at a machine for bonus materials such as music remixes and additional cosmetics. This is a collectathon, but it doesn't completely overwhelm you with too much stuff to gather up, and the kind of open world nature of the level design means you can just meander at your own pace, doing whatever takes your fancy at the time. If you're into or were into your 3D platformers, this charming little game is definitely one to check out.
Child is predictable.
At first glance, you'll be excused for thinking this is a straight up Zelda Breath of the Wild clone. The visuals will certainly lead you to that conclusion if nothing else, but Yonder, the Cloudcatcher Chronicles, differs in many ways. For starters, this is a completely combat-free game. Instead, it focuses on exploration, adventure, farming and crafting, that sort of thing, with a few side quests and mini-games thrown in for good measure. The game starts with our little adventurer being shipwrecked on a magical island called Jamea. Unfortunately, a mysterious dark fog known as the Murk is polluting the environment and causing distress to the island's inhabitants. Now it's up to you to restore the island and be the saviour to the people by finding the sprites needed to dispel the Murk. The game's world provides plenty of environmental variety to adventure through, featuring 8 distinct areas to explore, such as tropical beaches or snowy mountains, but if I had one small gripe, it's that the NPCs tend to feel a little cut and paste, therefore ended up being a bit forgettable. But borrowing few elements from gameplay mechanics like Harvest Moon and Animal Crossing, this chilled out and light-hearted little game is the perfect place to relax and kill nothing but time. Slay the Spire is an indie roguelike deck building game, and it has relatively low barrier of entry. You don't have to be a card game expert or anything like that. In fact, this game was my first dip into the genre and I loved it immediately. It starts off simple enough, especially with its stripped back looks and the card's abilities easily identifiable, but beating this game is a whole other story. I liken it to something like Rocket League, where they've got the formula down to a T so that it's easy to pick up and comprehend for newcomers, but there's also way more depth beneath the surface, and mastering it is a different ballgame entirely. In a bid to reach the titular Spire, you'll choose one of 4 characters with varying strengths and weaknesses and work your way up, defeating bosses that increase in difficulty with every level. You'll collect cards along the way, either by defeating enemies, opening chests or buying from merchants, and slowly you'll be building your deck to fit your playstyle. With each encounter, the cards you've obtained thus far are shuffled into your hand, each costing a certain amount of energy points. With a finite amount of energy at your disposal per turn, it's up to you to decide what the best course of action is to defeat the enemy whilst taking as little damage as possible yourself. You are provided some healing opportunities on every run, but they are limited and their placements randomised. Minimising the amount of damage you take each battle becomes vital if you ever want to reach the top of the Spire. And there are also relics to collect and add to your arsenal that have far-reaching consequences, adding abilities and bonuses to your cards that further enhance them. But the casual turn-based nature of this game, coupled with its depth and complexity once you get further into it, made this my go-to late night, just one more go game. The developers Thunder Lotus Games describes Spiritfarer as a cozy management game about dying. Accompanied by a cute cat named Daffodil, you'll play as Stella, who at the start of the game becomes a Spiritfarer. Her job is to ferry spirits of the deceased to the afterlife via the Everdoor. With some spirits having unresolved dilemmas from when they were alive, it's Stella's job to resolve them so that they can complete their journey and be at peace. The vessel that they will use to embark their journey on is a ship that Stella upgrades as the game progresses. Collecting materials from your travels, you will build kitchens, gardens and other homely amenities that help make the spirits on board feel more comfortable and at ease. You do this by stacking them on top of each other Jenga style, and along with certain vendors throughout the world selling items such as furniture or seeds for your garden, gives the ship a very personal touch. Packing an emotional punch at numerous points in the game, this is a bit of a one-of-a-kind that deals with loss and acceptance in a way I haven't seen before, and this is masterfully executed by incredible character animations and a score that will leave a lasting impression. I think if there was ever a game that felt like a hug from a loved one, it would be this. In fact, this game has its own designated hug button, so they definitely had the feels set in their sights from the beginning. All-round loveliness that should be experienced by all, pairs lovely with a cup of tea and a few chocolate hobnobs. The Sexy Brutale by Cavalier Game Studios and Tequila Works, the latter's second game on this list, is a puzzle adventure title where you'll be tasked with exploring a mansion that is stuck in a Groundhog Day-like time loop. You'll play as Lafcadio Boone, a preacher who wakes up during a yearly party that Lucas Bonds hosts in his casino. Eventually, a mysterious woman known as the Bloody Girl gives Boone a mask that removes him from the time loop the other guests are still stuck in. Unfortunately, some major stuff goes down and the guests are all murdered. Reliving their deaths over and over again, it'll be your job playing as Boone to figure out how to save each partygoer by discovering clues and items as you explore. It's got a very unique art style and well-crafted characters dispersed between gorgeously designed and unique rooms, with a kind of isometric top-down perspective, giving you the feeling like you're peering into a doll's house that's come to life and all the dolls are on a killing spree. The easy comparison to make would be Cluedo, but there's something about exploring the mansion itself that reminded me a lot of the first Resident Evil game. Unique in its game design and premise, fans of puzzle games will get a massive kick out of this one, I'm sure. Where the Heart Leads from Armature Games is a narrative-driven game with a gorgeous art style that follows Whit Anderson, his less-than-functional family, and the small town of characters they share their lives with. Being a narrative-driven game, there isn't much in the form of traditional gameplay mechanics, but what it lacks in that department it more than makes up for in its impressive writing. Following Whit's life from childhood, adolescence, adulthood and so on, you will experience all the joys and pain a lifetime can bring via memories that at times can take on a very surreal look and feel. With branching dialogue options thrown in too, it does make you feel like you have some agency with the story, but not a great deal. There are occasionally some puzzles to complete, but these mainly consist of finding the right objects to interact with or talk to the right person at the right time. As I said, this is primarily a narrative-driven game, so the gameplay side of things is light. And as you might expect, there is an abundance of dialogue, so it can feel more like a visual novel than anything else, but as I said, the writing is really on point, so for me this never became an issue. It's not going to be for everyone, but this relaxing, almost hypnotic game about one man's entire life and the ramifications of the decisions he makes within it was genuinely captivating for me to watch, and the stylized aesthetic and accompanying soundtrack married up beautifully with its melancholic themes. Combining genres that have never previously before met, or at least not to my knowledge, Yoku's Island Express manages to blend pinball with a Metroidvania-style platformer, and it does it so fantastically well that you'll be left wondering why wasn't this done sooner, and why haven't we got more of them since. You'll play the game as a young dung beetle named Yoku, who becomes the postmaster of an island called Mokumana shortly after arriving there. After the island's deity statue is attacked, a looming calamity is engulfing the island and it's Yoku's job to save it. The gameplay mainly consists of side-scrolling platforming as you move Yoku left and right. What you can't do, however, is jump. Instead, you'll use pinball flippers placed throughout the map to launch the ball attached to Yoku into the air, pulling Yoku with it. The game's map is open world with some areas gated off until you acquire the right equipment, but there is so much to do and see that never got frustrating for me. The colourful visuals, cheery music and fluid gameplay made this one an absolute joy to play, and I highly recommend everyone give this a go. The first game from Swedish-Lebanese filmmaker and award show loose cannon Joseph Fares, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons kinda blew me away when I first played it back in 2016, and this was coming off the back of playing games like Ratchet & Clank and Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, both incredible and highly revered games in their own right, but I would argue Brothers left a far more lasting impression on me and is still a game I think about often. Without wanting to spoil anything about the story for those of you that haven't played it, the broad strokes are essentially two brothers are on a quest through a fantastical land to locate and collect water from the Tree of Life in order to cure their father from a terrible illness. You might be thinking that sounds a little trite and overplayed as a narrative vehicle, and you'd be right, but the spiritual and emotional journey the brothers embark on, and therefore you as the player, was completely unexpected and nothing short of extraordinary in my opinion. Originally released digitally in 2013 on the PS3 and then re-released a few years later for the PS4, this 10-year-old game is starting to show its age in the looks department, but there's still a certain charm to the aesthetic that lends itself really well to the narrative, and to be honest, cutting-edge visuals isn't really what you play this game for. This is all about the story and the way it's told through the lenses of two brothers desperate to keep their family together. You'll move both brothers through the world simultaneously to overcome obstacles, defeat foes, and solve puzzles. Movement for one brother is controlled by the left thumbstick and the other brother the right thumbstick. Equally, the controller's triggers follow the same format, and pressing one will cause the respective brother to interact with the game's world, such as talking to NPCs or grabbing objects. With varying ages, the elder and larger brother takes care of lever pulling and general big boy stuff, while the younger of the two can fit through small nooks and crannies and be boosted to higher places. At multiple points throughout the game, you'll be required to manipulate both brothers to perform differing tasks, and it does take a little while to get used to, or at least it did for me. But it's through this rather peculiar form of interaction the game communicates its strongest message. If you know, you know, and if you don't, I suggest playing it as soon as possible to find out. Can't recommend this one highly enough. Well, there you have it, 10 relaxing PS4 games to chill out with when everything else feels a little too much like hard work. What are your go-to games to kick back with? I'm always on the hunt for more, so let me know down in the comments, I'd really appreciate that. And if you like what you've seen and heard and want more, then check out my other videos and have a think about subscribing or liking this video too, as it genuinely helps out quite a bit. More videos are on the way, but that's going to wrap things up here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care, be good, and game on.